It was 12 years ago I was appointed to First United Methodist Church in Greenville, and when I arrived, I noticed their cornerstone. I noticed things like that. And I noticed the cornerstone said 1951, but it was sitting on top of another cornerstone that was older, and that one said 1888, I believe. But that cornerstone was blackened with soot all around it. And so I inquired and asked if there had been a fire. And they told me the story about 1951. It was the centennial of the church. It was the first church in Greenville, like we are the first church in Kalamazoo, to be founded. It was proud of its heritage. It was getting ready for a big party, and it was going to come right after Easter in the spring of 1951. And they had everybody out helping to decorate the sanctuary. They had done improvements. They were excited. They were all ready to just have a grand and glorious party. And I'll never forget the pictures in the paper that had been saved about what happened. On the night of April 2nd, an arsonist went around the downtown torching churches, among them First Methodist. The resulting picture from the next day in the Greenville Daily News showed the remnant of a building with walls standing but windows blown out, ceiling fallen in, and still some ladders in place where decorating had been happening. It was such a sad picture. But then I was told that it was just a few weeks later, Easter, and then the celebration of their centennial. They went ahead with it up at the Union School up on the hill, and they gathered together in the auditorium of the school, and they did a play about their church history, which had been in the works for months. And they added a part at the end. As they were concluding the history of the church, someone rushed in down the aisle and in panic said, "Our church is burned. Our church has been destroyed. We don't have our church anymore." And all those on the stage with one voice said, "You're wrong. The church is still here. We are the church." Amen? You know, I took great hope and inspiration from that. And then I arrived here to pastor, and I discovered that we too had a disastrous fire. We too had it set by the hand of an arsonist. We too, just before Easter, lost the grand and glorious building that had been part of our congregation's worship for 2 generations over on the corner of Lovell and Rose, and it was now a smoldering heap of ashes and ruin. You can see the pictures that are across from the welcome desk of some of that history. Now, I was poking around in our archives, which is a room half stairway down over here. Probably, how many of you have been in the archives? Let's see, 4, 5, 6, maybe more. You know, that's a very interesting room. I was poking around in it to find some information for the history of women's ministry in this place that I was doing for the United Methodist Women last Wednesday. And I really want to thank all those who have helped keep records there, and especially the Eatons and Joanne Ivy, the people who have helped us keep things in order. I found the minutes from the women's meetings that spring. I went to the February minutes, and they said at the top of it, "We're meeting at the church." And then they proceeded to talk about all the things they did in prayer and praise and offering and learning about missions, and then turn the page to March. And at the top of the page it said, "We met at the YMCA," which was the building that was where the parking lot of the Congregational Church is now. And then they proceeded in the minutes to talk about their mission in this community and around the world, about how they had a speaker from Detroit who talked about immigrants who were trying to find their way in the 1920s in our land. They talked about how they were concerned about the mission in India and how they were supporting schools and hospitals. And they sang a hymn and they collected an offering of $3.64. And then the secretary signed their name. And at the bottom of the page, she wrote, First Methodist Church burned last week, a total loss. We'll continue to meet at the Y. I don't know about you, but I drew inspiration from that.